Thanks for staying with us here on The Real Story. There has been a lot of upheaval at federal agencies lately, and the Department of Veterans Affairs is no exception. We're taking a look at where Connecticut's veterans are now and what possible impacts they could be facing through all this. Joining me now is Alison Weir, Executive Director of the Connecticut Veterans Legal Center. Alison, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks very much, Emma.
So start off telling me what Connecticut Veterans Legal Center is. Who are you? What do you do? How long have you been around for?
So we've been around since 2009.
Okay.
We are a legal aid program for veterans in Connecticut. Yeah. We work in medical legal partnership with the Connecticut Healthcare and what that means is basically clinicians refer cases to us.
Okay.
Their patients have a legal issue they need some help with, because what they found is that sometimes people trying to get better, there are a lot of basic needs of life that can really impede your progress. If you're worried about getting evicted, it's hard to relax, and that can have mental and physical strains. Sure. It's hard to eat healthy if you're food insecure, that kind of thing. And a lot of times a lawyer can help with that. Yeah. So that's really our primary bread and butter is working as a medical legal partnership, providing civil legal services for veterans in Connecticut.
You mentioned eviction. What are you seeing in terms of need for Connecticut's veterans right now? Any sort of increases in specific services recently?
Ever since the pandemic and the moratorium on evictions has been lifted, the need for housing has skyrocketed. We're part of the Right to Counsel program in Connecticut. That's a program where the state legislature has given money to legal aid programs to represent clients and tenants being evicted in housing court. So we have a lot of clients for that program, and we also it's hard to find housing in Connecticut. Right. Evictions have gone up, and even if we can get an eviction off the record, it's sometimes hard to find a more affordable place for our clients to live.
Sure. And so, with your role there, kind of bridging that gap, right, being there for other services to connect veterans. Under the second Trump administration, the Department of Veterans Affairs released a memo planning to cut more than 80,000 jobs from the VA. What was your reaction to that?
Really distressed, frankly, because the VA has been trying for the last several years to man up, because there's a huge backlog in considering better benefits cases, and also in providing medical and healthcare services. The administration has said that healthcare workers won't be subject to this, but I don't know how you get to 80,000 without subjecting healthcare. And even if it's just the benefits, there's already a huge backlog. That backlog has only increased because of the passage of the PACT Act. And what the PACT Act did was expand the benefits available to veterans who have been exposed to toxins during the course of war. Yep. So it makes it easier to apply, which means a lot more people have applied. There are a lot more applications. Yeah. The backlog will only continue.
Yeah. A lot more people covered.
A lot more people, yeah. And we already have problems of people being on, waiting for adjudication of their claims and dying before they ever hear. And that is only going to be exacerbated.
What level, you just mentioned obviously the backlog right, getting worse, but what level of layoffs, what could that impact look like, especially, for your services and for Connecticut veterans here?
So I'm not entirely sure, I'm not part of the VA, so I'm right, not entirely sure what the VA will say, but right, we expect to see a lot more veterans in need. Right. We see a lot more veterans having delay on their benefits, which means they will need more other public benefits. They'll need food stamps, they'll need help with housing assistance. So we expect to see more clients. We also expect to see more folks who are just trying to get the health care they need.
Yeah. So we've seen federal and state lawmakers holding press conferences in response to a lot of the announcements of cuts. In particular, Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal, he's actually introduced bills to combat some of these layoffs. What do you all see as needed by legislators, whether at a state level or a federal level, to increase protections and services for veterans?
I mean, certainly bills like Senator Blumenthal's, and just speaking up and sort of being outraged about the layoff of federal employees. One of the things people don't often know is that about a third of federal employees are veterans. So the folks who get laid off may not be clients today, but they may wind up needing our services because they won't have the income they had before.
Right. Right. So some of those people who might be being laid off from the VA are veterans themselves. Yeah. And what do you see? Are there any, stories that come to top of mind recently of that need? Obviously, we've seen layoffs from other agencies on a federal level take effect. We know we have employees here in Connecticut. Is there anything that comes to mind of you that you've heard? Maybe an increase in calls recently?
And we've had a lot of increases in calls about evictions. We've had increases of calls. Generally, too, we've had a lot of people who called who've been nervous. A lot of nerves out there, and it's rather unsettling. Even my colleagues at the VA, they've been barraged with these emails. Justify your job. Tell us that you're doing something. And these people are amazing. They will crawl through across heaven and earth to help their clients, and it breaks my heart to see them just treated this way.
Yeah. So when it comes to, some of the other policies and orders that we've seen, this past week, a federal judge blocked enforcement of the new Department of Defense policy barring transgender people from the military. What was your reaction when that policy was first announced back in February?
I thought it was really small-minded, and it was sort of contrary to the idea of meritocracy in the military. I spent 20 years in the Air Force. I lived through Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Yeah.
I had a lot of friends who I knew were gay, and some I found out were gay later. There was never a change in performance. There was never a fitness for duty. It was all canard. But they also lived on this horrible dread of people finding out their secret. When the Trump administration first enacted a transgender ban, there really weren't any. There wasn't any data to see how many people were transgender.
Sure.
Since then, under the Biden administration, there've been 4 years of people serving who are transgender, and they've been as lethal and as effective as a military member as any other military member. And calling out these artificial distinctions that don't mean anything really sort of adds to divisiveness as opposed to reducing divisiveness and increasing unit cohesion as the policy claims to do.
Right. And so, as you mentioned, the policy sort of claims that transgender people aren't as fit for duty as cisgender people.
And there's no support to that.
Yeah.
I mean, they make these proclamations and they have no support.
And what do you think a ban like that coming from the federal level says for unit cohesion and for camaraderie in our military?
It just causes people to have reasons to suspect each other. Folks who are transgender are feeling that they've been assaulted and unwanted. That their existence is a crime. It's horrible. It's a horrible way to serve, and it also does not improve unit cohesion whatsoever.
And now, as I mentioned, a federal judge has blocked that order. We've obviously seen legal battles for lots of different executive orders and policies coming out of this second Trump administration, not just this one, but a multitude of others that are kind of holed up in the courts right now. For this one, what was your response to that judge block? Did that give you any hope that this policy might not fully go into effect, or do you feel like it's just kind of a wait and see?
I think it's going to be a long battle. I suspect they will appeal the injunction. I suspect we'll be seeing this back and forth. I think the administration has a lot of legal balls in the air, and I expect to see a lot of delay and taking time to wind through the courts. I think the courts usually come to the right decision, but it's a long process getting there.
And what has it been like for CVLC dealing with so much uncertainty and back and forth over the past 2 months?
It's been exhausting. When they announced they were cutting the grants and funding, we get about $500,000, about 20% of our budget from federal funding.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that was initial. Will I have to worry? I mean, as an executive director, will I have to worry about? Will I be able to cover my payroll? Will I be able to take care of everybody? That seems to have faded at this point. We recently got some payment for a reimbursement request.
Okay.
So it seems to be okay. But you don't know. Everything is so chaotic, and it's exhausting trying to figure out how best to address the needs of our clients, address the needs of my people, and also support our colleagues at the VA.
So when it comes to some of that support and for veterans, even with a lot of this back and forth, what do you want Connecticut veterans to know about their access to services and resources right now?
So look at our website, ctveteranslegal.org. We have a lot of resources. We have resources for LGBTQ veterans. We have the Veterans Guide. We have some guides on how to get a hold of us. We are primarily a medical legal partnership with the VA. So if you have a clinician, get a clinician referral. If you have bad paper, if you have a discharge that's less than honorable, we can help with that. So reach out to us, call our contact line, our intake line, intakes at ctveteranslegal.org. Our phone number is 203-479-0375. You can text or call. And we will keep trying to fight the good fight.
Is there any other message to those who, I know you were saying there are nerves out there, you've been getting calls and people are nervous. What's your sort of message to them?
Our message is we will help and support. If you think you're being denied service, contact us. If you think you're being denied service, especially LGBTQ or trans, if you think you are having trouble being discriminated because you're a veteran, contact us, and we will do what we can.
Well, Alison, thank you so much for taking a couple minutes to check in with us. We really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you. That does it for us here now on The Real Story. But if you want to watch these segments again, you can head to fox61.com or download the free Fox 61 News app and watch The Real Story every Sunday at 10 a.m. right here on Fox 61. Have a great rest of your morning.